The name Doubting Charlie comes from, reluctantly, my favourite of the apostles, which is Thomas the Apostle, also known as Thomas the Doubter, which is an unpopular choice because probably second to Judas, he's the least looked down apostle, and that's because after Christ was judicially murdered and tortured and died and put to rest, Thomas lost all hope. And when the friends came to him and said, no, Christ, he is the Messiah, he's come back to life, Thomas didn't want anything to do with it. He said, and I'm going to quote it exactly here, "Except I shall see on his hands the prints of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and thrust my hand into his side, I will not believe." Basically meaning, unless he sees Christ before him and can see the wounds and actually see they're real, it's not just a doppelganger or whatever. I mean, those are pretty damning words. And then, of course, Christ appears to him and says, Thomas believes, and Christ says the famous saying, "You only believe because you see, blessed are those who do not see yet believe." And I've struggled with that a lot. I actually connect more to Thomas in that situation than with Christ, but hopefully that'll become clear as I tell the story. I was raised fantastically in the church, nothing but good memories, and as I grew up, I became interested in storytelling, and as I grow older, I became interested specifically in filmmaking. But as I went through school, I had a lot of atheist friends. Well, I shouldn't call them friends because they teased me for my faith and bullied me for it. And then I was in a relationship with a girl that couldn't understand why I was going to church. And then I started reading philosophy and seeing just how subjective the world is, how many different opinions there are of existence itself. And the faith got lost in this whirlwind of subjectivity and doubt. And so I kind of drifted from it for my late teens and early 20s, brought back by going to the pub at the Cherry Tree. My dad just said, "Oh, I'm meeting with Father Robert, we talk philosophy, why don't you come along?" And maybe Dad was planning something that I didn't know about at the time, but it got me interested in it again, and Father Robert introduced us to Lectio Divina, which, again, I'm going to quote exactly, is Latin for divine reading and is a traditional monastic practice of scriptural reading, meditation, and prayer. Now, it's intended, it does not treat scripture as text, as academic text, but to be studied as the living word. So when he showed it to us, it wasn't all these historical dates and names and dusty history, which history is great, don't get me wrong, but it was poetry. It was art, it was music, looking at the words, the beauty of the words and of this story. It just came alive and exploded for me, this new way of coming into the Bible that I hadn't had before. And all of a sudden it became personal. It was a story, it was a direct conversation between me and this living word. So I found a way in again to my faith. And then before long, I was in Chelmsford Cathedral getting confirmed by Bishop Gooley, and Father Andrew oversaw that, and the infamous Father Robert was there. But as we were in the side room in the chapel preparing for the service, I started feeling nervous and basically had a theological panic attack. And I remember being in the toilets with the gentleman I was being confirmed with, and I was I was sort of leant over the wash basin, and I was going, I don't know, man. What if Richard Dawkins is right? What if Christopher Hitchens is right? What if it's all nonsense? And he was like a rabbit in headlights, going, I hope they're not right. And I realised I was kind of ruining his confirmation, so I bottled it, and I went out back into the chapel, and Bishop Gooley was coming around, and she could tell I wasn't feeling well. She said, "Well, don't worry, the service is all planned, and we're all friends." And the infamous Father Robert, it said, "He's not nervous about the ceremony, he's nervous to follow Christ." And Bishop Gooley went, "Oh, well, that's another issue entirely." And, I mean, that's Father Robert for anyone that knows him. He just knows exactly what not to say in those situations. So I went through with the confirmation, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I felt so loved and supported, and it was a huge event that went to this very intimate moment of having hands placed on me and brought into the church. But then I had the post-communion blues. You were on this conveyor belt all the way towards your faith, and then all of a sudden it's over, and it's just you in a desert going, now what? And I didn't know where to go next. And I read Bishop Gooley's book, which is called Reflections on the Resurrection. And one of the themes that keeps popping up is Christ appearing to people after his death and resurrection and saying, it's on you now, I'm not here anymore, it's for you to carry on the faith and the church. So I thought, well, I'm not one of the 12 disciples, but there is something on me to go looking for my faith, not just waiting for it to come to me. So I thought, okay, how can I do that? And so I combined all the things that happened to me, some filmmaking skills, as you can probably see, that sort of element of it, the Lectio Divina method that I've just learned, recruiting my dad, because as he said, he's got a grounded faith. Mine's quite up in the clouds, like Father Robert's. So he could ground me and be a great opposition, but in a mentoring way, and I'm still learning from him to this day. And we went off and we started filming us reading the Bible in this personal way and seeing what came out of the text. And within the last year, we've filmed 12 hour-long episodes that are all online of going passage by passage, not a big overview, zooming in on, Mary and Joseph fleeing to Egypt away from persecution. And it wasn't this geographical event. It was, my God, how scared must they have been as they went? It was a completely different way of coming in. And so we had an incredible time, and we've visited so many different churches now. We've had Father Andrew on the show, we had Father John. I just had another priest I met in Devon. He's now the chaplain at Greenwich University. And learning, filling up. And the doubt was still there, but it was always in conversation with all this new information and feeling that was coming in. And then I was publishing the episodes. I was telling my friends about my faith, which is also something you're supposed to do after you get confirmed. And it felt like it was all working out. And then, of course, the slump comes, and the doubt creeps back in. And you hear all those voices. What if you're just kidding yourself? What if you're just saying it? What if you're brainwashing yourself? What if this is just a tradition that's, no longer needed? All those, thoughts that come in. And I didn't have the defenses anymore. I was left with all these thoughts of, and then Father Andrew explained it as the voice of the devil, that voice that you're not good enough, that what are you doing all these videos for? Nobody cares, and, you're wasting your time. And so I got down, and the more I filmed, the more I got upset because I was burning myself out. I was overdoing it, and I thought it was never enough. I always felt like I wasn't being a good enough Christian, and I wasn't learning enough. I still couldn't quote you, half of the names and dates in the Bible. I haven't read the whole thing. And so I was getting really down. I took time off church. I actually stopped going because I thought I'm overdoing it. And then in that calm, I came to the realization that I was putting pressure on myself to make God exist. That if I didn't think he existed, he didn't. And that's the complete reverse thinking. It's that God exists whether I believe in him or not. It's not something for me to decide that he will will into existence. So why don't I just relax? Why don't I just live my life and know that God's there looking after me, even if I'm not, always in that mental space of belief, and give myself a bit of a break, I suppose. So we got back up, we made more episodes, and things started getting better. And again, all these opportunities started coming, filmmaking opportunities, and I met another priest who I said's now in London. And the channel's found a second wind, and we've done new videos. They're not on the channel yet, but I've got videos of my dad just sort of talking to the camera about his journey through faith. I'm thinking of doing like book reviews of the big books of the time. George and I are doing a debate in March where we're going to argue sort of political religious ideas and really get into what's going on today. So it's expanding. It's becoming more than just my doubts. It's becoming a place where I can overcome the doubts. And so to bring it all back to doubting Thomas, although he didn't believe without seeing, once he did, you can see this is a picture by, I think, Caravaggio, a very famous painting. That's the moment of him putting his finger in the wound, and you can't quite see, but his eyes are wide because he gets it. He finally gets it. With the help of Christ, he understands. And then Thomas went on to spread the word to modern-day Turkey, and then he even went to India to spread the word there, where it's believed he was actually martyred for his faith. So he died as true a Christian as you possibly can. So I don't want to be arrogant, but there's some hope in there. But although I don't get it right now, a moment will come where it will click, and I'll be able to live as a good Christian. And something Father Robert again said was that, he said this to me as I was being confirmed on that journey. He said, "Charlie, you're in a long line of great Christians who struggled with their faith." And that's not to say I'm great, that just means to say that it's okay where I'm at, but it doesn't all make sense, and that I'm able to question these things, and through that I'll find my way to God. And the very final thing is, the subtitle is Thoughts on Religion from a Part-Time Believer. That's just a little bit of a catchy tagline for the channel. But I thought of a new one the other day, which is Getting Closer to God One Doubt at a Time. And I think that connects much more to where I'm at. And the YouTube channel helps with that. And we're going to show you some clips now that show you how we discuss these things in a different way. So thanks for listening to me ramble on. And we'll have a little look at the next clip.